I asked for water because my chest felt like someone had laced it with barbed wire. Not a favor. Not a grand gesture. Just 8 ounces from the tap in the kitchen of the house my wife and I paid off one brittle Ohio winter at a time. Emily didn't even turn her head. "We're not your servants, Dad." The words were plain, almost bored, like she was swiping away a pop-up ad. Derek chuckled without looking up from the TV. Game show applause filled the room like canned empathy. 3 days ago, a surgeon slid a catheter up my artery and restarted a tired heart. Today I was home, stitched and shaky, staring at my daughter's outline in the doorway while the air conditioner hummed and the ice maker clattered like it was mocking me. "I just got discharged," I said, and even to me my voice sounded thin. "Could you please? You've got legs," Emily said, lifting her phone. "Walking is good for recovery." There it was, toxic, dressed as helpful. I've met that voice before, the kind that smiles while it moves your boundaries 2 inches back and calls it love. I used to think I was being a good father, generous, a peacemaker. That's the polite word. The accurate one is enabler. I planted my palms on the armrests and pushed. The sutures pulled tight. A hot, electric zing stitched across my sternum. I stood anyway. The room wobbled, then settled. Derek flicked the volume higher. Laughter rose and fell like a tide that didn't care if I drowned. "Careful," Emily said in a tone people use with toddlers and elderly men they've decided are past the point of negotiation. "Don't make more work for us." Us. As if there were a schedule somewhere, color-coded, showing my needs as unpaid overtime. In the kitchen, the faucet squealed to life under my hand. The glass knocked once against porcelain as I filled it. My hand shook, but not because of the pain, because I finally heard what had been there for months, maybe years. The narcissist's favorite magic trick. Erase the favor. Write in the right. The ledger flips and suddenly I owe them. I took a sip. It tasted like metal and apologies I'd made for other people's behavior. A soft ding sounded from the front door, the doorbell camera announcing a motion clip uploaded to the cloud. I installed it after Lisa died. She liked how it texted me when packages arrived. I never thought I'd be grateful for a machine that doesn't do gaslighting. Back in the living room, Emily stood where I'd left her, and for a moment I saw 2 Emmys at once. The child who pressed dandelions into my palm and the woman who measured my worth in errands and silence. "I'm going to lay down," I said. "Great," Derek said. Less drama. I walked down the hall past the framed photo of Lisa and me at Lake Erie in 1998. She was laughing, bangs stuck to her forehead, both hands around a paper cup of coffee. I keep her will and the life insurance paperwork in a fireproof safe in the bedroom closet, a gray box with a combination only I know, because I never trusted my memory to grief. In the top drawer, copies of the deed transfer we did for Emily's security after Lisa's funeral, with a sticky note from the closing attorney. "Mark, reversion clause highlighted. Call if you need anything." I hadn't read that note in 3 years. Today, I could see the highlighter from across the room. My phone buzzed. A banner slid across the screen from the Doorbell app. New clip saved living room audio. I didn't set it to pick up audio in there. Derek must have toggled the TV sound boost, or the app updated. Either way, the cloud just got a clean recording of how my daughter speaks to me when I'm weak. Written evidence in waveform. Another buzz. A text from Emily, sent to me and Derek in a group thread named House Stuff. Emily. PSA. Dad needs to stop relying on us. Doctor said he should move more. Derek. Boundaries. If he wants service, he can hire a nurse. Emily. Exactly. We're not live-in help. I stared at the 3 dots pulsing like a heartbeat. I typed, me. Asking for a glass of water after cardiac surgery isn't service. It's family. The dots appeared, vanished. Came back. Emily. Stop making us the bad guys. There's a special cruelty in being told you're making someone treat you poorly. It's the cheapest gaslight in the aisle. You're not hurt. You're manipulative. In the bedroom, I eased onto the bed and pulled Lisa's folder onto my lap. The will, the Northwestern Mutual letter, bank account beneficiary forms. Paper is heavy when it's proof. I didn't open anything. I didn't need to yet. Just knowing it existed steadied my hands more than the water did. My phone buzzed again. Email this time. Subject line: Ava Morales. Deed questions. I'd written her after the funeral when I was thinking straight. She'd answered within an hour back then, short and kind. Happy to help, Mark. Keep the originals. Scan copies. The thread was still there. A breadcrumb trail leading back to a day when I trusted my judgment. Down the hall. The TV laughed at me again. Here's the part I haven't told anyone. I used to think being nice would fix it. That if I paid the car note, covered the last semester, floated the rent, just this once, generosity would shame toxic behavior into retreat. It doesn't. It trains it. Somewhere between the faucet squeal and Emily's text, a line clicked into place in my head. Stop apologizing for needing care in your own home. Stop explaining why the people who love you shouldn't humiliate you. Stop being the one who bends. I placed the empty glass on the nightstand. The ring it left looked like a watermark on a document. A faint circle proving something happened here. Outside, a lawnmower started 2 houses over. Normal life, indifferent and loud. I breathed through the ache in my chest, slow and even, and decided 2 things. First, I was done being everyone's enabler. Second, I was going to read every line of those documents in the safe, highlight the parts that matter, and make sure the next time someone tried to tell me this wasn't my house, I'd have more than a broken heart to answer with. I didn't know it yet, but the cloud had already saved the first piece of it, my daughter's voice, clean as a notarized page, saying the quiet part out loud, and I knew this. The next glass of water I poured would be for myself right before I set some actual boundaries. When you give too much for too long, the line between kindness and obligation starts to blur. I used to think helping Emily was just what fathers did, that if I kept fixing things, eventually she'd find her balance and start fixing her own. Looking back now, every small favor was really a down payment on the disrespect I'm living with. It started after Lisa's funeral 5 years ago. We'd just buried the only woman who ever kept peace in this family, and grief made me reckless. Emily and Derek were newly married, both between jobs. They wanted to start fresh, but starting fresh meant living off my savings until they got stable. And I sold the lake cabin. Lisa loved the one with the chipped porch swing and the hummingbird feeder she used to refill every morning, and I wired Emily $40,000 for a down payment. "Dad, you're saving our lives," she said, tears in her eyes. Back then, that sentence sounded holy. I didn't realize she meant saving her lifestyle. When Derek's business tanked a year later, I co-signed another loan, this time $15,000, to keep them afloat. I told myself it was temporary. They promised to pay me back as soon as his startup took off. It never did. Somewhere between refinancing the house and covering their car repairs, the language changed. "Thank you" turned into "can you." Then, "you will." I didn't even notice the shift. Because when you're the parent who survives, you spend years trying to fill the silence your partner left behind. You throw money and energy at the hole, hoping it'll sound less empty. The worst part? I thought I was buying connection. 2 summers ago, Emily redecorated the kitchen for resale value. She said it like it was a smart business move. I paid the contractor's $8,200 invoice myself. She texted a thank you emoji, the one with the folded hands, and that was that. By last winter, she'd started referring to the house as our home in front of friends. At Christmas, she corrected someone who asked about my retirement plans. "Oh, Dad's living with us now," she said. "He loves the guest room." I built that damn room with my own hands 20 years ago. It used to be Emily's nursery. I remember sanding the window frame while Lisa painted the walls a color called buttercream cloud. Now it's the guest room. I kept paying the property taxes because I didn't want late fees wrecking their credit. I covered the utilities because the accounts were still under my name. Every automatic draft pulled another piece of me out of the bank, out of patience, out of denial. I was the perfect enabler, trained, consistent, predictable. When I finally checked my online balance last week, I saw the red number next to my checking account, $142.76. That's what I had left after decades of toxic generosity. The will Lisa and I wrote together sits in a blue folder labeled Ellison Estate. Her handwriting on the sticky note still says, "Make sure Emily's safe." She meant emotionally, not financially. Lisa believed people learned gratitude from being loved. But Lisa never met this version of our daughter, the one who measures love in square footage and interest rates. Sometimes I wonder if it's my fault. Did I raise her to think money just appeared because Dad said yes often enough? Maybe I taught her that unconditional love meant unconditional funding. That's the part that keeps me up. Realizing I built this monster, one check at a time. I used to tell Lisa I couldn't say no to Emily because I didn't want to see her struggle. Lisa would smile and say, "Then you're not saving her, Mark. You're just delaying her wake-up call." It took me 5 years to understand she was right. There's a file folder on my desk with every wire receipt and invoice I ever paid for them. I pulled it out tonight, spread the papers across the dining table, and for the first time they looked less like proof of love and more like evidence in a case against myself. Each signature, each date, each transfer, a breadcrumb trail of boundaries I never set. I'm starting to see that love without limits doesn't make people grateful. It makes them entitled. And the cruelest part? They don't even see it as cruelty. They think it's balance that I owe them because I'm old, because I'm lonely, because I gave once and can never take back. But there's a new balance sheet forming in my head now. For every dollar I gave, there's a piece of my voice I lost. For every time I said yes, there's a moment of silence I let them fill with their version of truth. I'm done financing disrespect. Tomorrow, I'm calling Ava Morales, the lawyer who handled the deed transfer years ago. There's a line in the paperwork I never paid attention to. Something about conditions of care. I used to skim it because I trusted them. Now, that line might be my way out. For the first time in years, I'm not thinking about how to keep Emily comfortable. I'm thinking about how to keep myself free. The next morning, I decided to run an experiment. Not the kind you read about in a psychology book, more like the kind a tired man runs when he finally wants the truth laid bare. I told myself if Emily and Derek reacted the same way twice, I'd stop pretending it was stress or miscommunication. It would mean this toxic pattern wasn't temporary, it was their default. The house was quiet when I woke up. The air smelled like coffee I hadn't brewed. They were in the kitchen, talking low, probably scrolling through their phones. I took a deep breath and stepped in. "Morning," I said. "Would one of you mind grabbing me a glass of water?" The room went still for a second, just like the last time. Derek looked up from his laptop, eyebrows lifted, as if I'd asked him to build an ark. "Again," he said. "You literally did this yesterday, Mark." It's funny how quickly people drop the word dad when they feel accused. Emily didn't even look at me at first. She kept stirring her coffee like it had something profound to say. Then, without meeting my eyes, she muttered, "You need to start helping yourself more. The doctor said movement's good for recovery." That line again. Scripted empathy masking control. I smiled, trying to keep my voice level. "Sure, an emotional recovery starts with not being treated like a burden." Her head snapped up. "Why do you always twist everything into drama? We're trying to help you build independence, not babysit you." Independence. I almost laughed. The mortgage company had my name on every page, but apparently I needed their permission to drink water in my own kitchen. I noticed the doorbell camera light glowing faintly on the wall near the hallway. It had picked up the motion when I entered. Maybe it was recording again, maybe that little red dot was my insurance policy. Derek leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. "Look, no offense, but you've been kind of needy since the surgery. Maybe some therapy would help you adjust." "Adjust to what?" I asked. "To reality," he said. There it was, the gaslight I'd been waiting for. He wanted me to question my own sanity, to believe that exhaustion and pain were overreactions, that my boundaries were delusions. I didn't argue. I just looked at both of them and said quietly, "Noted." It's some. That one word seemed to unnerve Emily. "Dad, don't start being weird about everything," she said. "We're just trying to make this house run smoothly." "This house," I repeated. "Funny you call it that." Her eyes flickered. Just for a second. A flash of guilt, or maybe fear, but she covered it fast. "You know what I mean." "Sure," I said, letting the silence breathe. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Tom, the neighbor. "Hey, everything okay over there? Heard some raised voices yesterday. I'm out in the yard if you need a hand." Tom was retired from the post office. The kind of man who noticed things because he genuinely cared, not because he was nosy. He'd brought me soup after my surgery and shoveled the sidewalk without being asked. In a world full of people who take, Tom still believed in giving. I texted back, "All good for now. Just testing something." He replied with a thumbs-up emoji. I didn't have to explain. He knew the kind of test I meant. Back inside, Emily was wiping down the counter like she wanted to scrub the conversation off it. "I'll get my own water," I said. "Wouldn't want to interfere with your boundaries." Derek smirked. "Now you're getting it." I filled the glass slowly, the way I did when Lisa was alive, steady hand. No spill, no mess. The sound of running water felt louder than it should. When I turned around, they were both staring at me. It wasn't guilt I saw. It was annoyance. Like I was some tenant who refused to move out of their Airbnb on time. I took a sip and said, "You two ever stop to think what this place cost?" Derek shrugged. "A lot, I'm sure. But you said it was a gift. Gifts don't come with strings." I nodded. "No. They come with conditions. That's different." Emily rolled her eyes. "God, you're impossible sometimes." "Maybe," I said. "But I'm also not confused anymore." She frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing yet." I smiled and walked back to my room, leaving them to wonder. Halfway down the hallway, I heard her whisper sharply to Derek. "He's acting different. Like he's planning something." He chuckled. "Let him. What's he gonna do, sue us?" I closed my door, leaned against it, and let that last sentence echo in my head. What's he gonna do, sue us? I think that was the moment I realized they genuinely believed they were untouchable, that no matter how cruel or dismissive they became, I'd just keep swallowing it because I was too weak, too lonely, too guilty to push back. They didn't understand that guilt is a battery, and mine had just finished charging. I looked at the folder of documents on my desk, still open from the night before. Lisa's handwriting on the corner of one page read, "Take care of yourself too." I whispered back, "I'm trying." Then I highlighted the line Ava had marked years ago, "Failure to provide care or housing as agreed shall constitute material breach of gift conditions." My hands didn't shake this time. Outside, Tom's mower started up, steady and rhythmic. The world carried on, unaware that in one quiet Ohio kitchen, a father had just stopped being an enabler and started being a witness. And the next time they crossed the line, I'd make sure there was more than a camera watching. There'd be evidence and consequences. You can live your whole life thinking family is the safest place on earth until the door locks from the outside. It happened on a Thursday night, around 8. I'd spent the day rereading the deed transfer Ava Morales handled years ago. Every line made me feel steadier. I wasn't powerless. I was just uninformed. That's a fixable problem. I walked into the living room, papers in hand, heart thudding from both adrenaline and post-surgery strain. Emily and Derek were sitting on the couch, scrolling through their phones like teenagers ignoring a substitute teacher. "We need to talk," I said. Emily didn't look up. "Can it wait?" "We're in the middle of something." "I've waited long enough." I set the folder on the coffee table. "This house isn't yours the way you think it is. There's a clause in the deed, conditional ownership. You've breached it." Derek blinked, confused at first, then defensive. "What are you talking about?" "You were supposed to provide reasonable care and respect while I recover. That's literally written down. Instead, you've treated me like an inconvenience." Emily's face flushed. "Oh my God, Dad, you're really losing it. You're turning this into some kind of legal drama now?" "Legal is the only language that people listen to when decency fails." That's when Derek's tone shifted from annoyed to cold. "You're not taking this house from us. 80. I never gave it away," I said. "I lent it to you, with terms, and you broke them." He stood, jaw tight. "You're confused, Mark. You just had heart surgery. You're not thinking clearly." There it was, the gaslight again, but this time sharper, weaponized. "I'm thinking clearer than ever," I said quietly. He took a step closer. You need to calm down before you hurt yourself. Don't worry, I told him. The only thing getting hurt tonight is your illusion of control. That's when Derek reached for my phone on the table. You're not calling anyone until you calm down. I reached too late. He slipped it into his pocket. Give that back, I said. Tomorrow, he said, after you've had some rest. Emily came around the couch, hands out like she was soothing a wild animal. Dad, let's get you to bed, okay? You're worked up. This isn't good for your heart. I'm fine. Please, she said, fake concern coating her voice. We'll talk in the morning. Before I could answer, they guided me down the hallway. My legs still felt weak, but anger gave them a second wind. You're making a mistake, I said. The only mistake, Derek replied, is letting this get out of hand. When I stepped into the bedroom, Emily closed the door behind me. The click of the lock was unmistakable. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the knob, half expecting them to open it again and laugh. But the hallway stayed silent. I tried the handle firmly stuck. I hit it again, harder. Nothing. My heart started pounding for real this time, a mix of rage and disbelief. The pulse monitor from the hospital flashed in my memory. Keep stress low. Yeah, good luck with that. I looked at the window. 12 feet to the driveway. Not impossible, but reckless for a man stitched together by medical miracles. I leaned against the wall, breathing through the ache, and whispered, so this is what family means now. 89. Then I saw the doorbell camera app notification on my smartwatch lighting up faintly. Motion detected. Backyard. Tom. Through the curtains, I could see his porch light across the fence. He was watering the hydrangeas, oblivious. I moved to the window, pushed it open just enough, and called out as quietly as I could. Tom! Over here! He looked up, startled. Mark? They locked me in, took my phone. Call the police. He froze for half a second, then nodded. Hold on. I could hear his voice drift through the air as he dialed 911. I waited, half expecting the pounding of footsteps in the hall, half praying I was fast enough. 8 minutes later, an eternity, the red-blue glow of police lights flickered across the neighbor's siding. Then came the knock. Emily's voice outside the door was syrup-sweet. Dad, you're going to scare the neighbors. Let's just explain. I opened my mouth, but the lock stayed firm. The officers called out from the front porch. Police, everyone please come to the door. I heard Derek mutter, play it calm. Then the door unlocked. Emily stepped inside, face flushed but calm, like an actress mid-scene. Dad, what's going on? She whispered. You tell me, I said. Why am I locked in? We didn't lock you in, she said quickly. You must have hit the latch by accident. From the outside? Hey, Dad, please, she hissed. You're confused. When we reached the front door, the officers were already inside. Emily plastered on a worried smile. Sorry, officers. He's recovering from heart surgery. I think the medication's making him a little paranoid. I could see the doubt flicker in their eyes. No broken furniture. No signs of struggle. Just a man in slippers and a daughter rehearsing compassion. One of the officers asked, Sir, are you feeling unsafe? Yes, I said firmly. They took my phone and locked me in my room. Emily gasped like she'd just witnessed a car crash. Dad, that's not true. Then where's my phone? I asked. Derek pulled it from his pocket, holding it out like a trophy. He dropped it earlier. We were charging it for him. The officer took it, inspected it, handed it back. Sir, we can file a report if you want, he said. But right now it looks like a misunderstanding. Of course it did. Gaslighting always looks neat on the outside. I understand, I said quietly. The officers left 15 minutes later. The minute their taillights disappeared, Derek turned to me, voice low and sharp. You just made a big mistake. Then he locked the bedroom again that night. But this time, I wasn't panicked. I was planning. Because the same camera that recorded Emily's outburst earlier had just captured everything, the shouting, the charging excuse, the fake concern, all saved to the cloud. For once, I didn't feel trapped. I felt armed. Tomorrow, I'd call Ava. Tonight, I'd remember exactly how this sounded. The echo of a lock clicking on a man's dignity, and the quiet decision that followed, never again. When you've been dismissed long enough, the first person who believes you feels like rescue. That was Ava Morales for me. Steady voice, sharp mind, no sympathy disguising pity. Just clarity. I called her early Friday morning, my hands still trembling from the night before. She picked up on the second ring. "Mark," she said, her tone instantly alert. "You sound like you've seen a ghost." "Not a ghost," I said. "Just my daughter." There was a pause. Then that lawyer calm slid into her voice. "Tell me what happened." So I did. The shouting, the lock, the fake concern for the cops. Everything. When I finished, Ava said, "You did the right thing calling me. I should have called you 5 years ago. Maybe. But you're calling now, and that means you still have options." Her confidence steadied me more than any medication had since the surgery. By 10 a.m. Look, amen. She was sitting in my living room. Same black briefcase she'd brought to the deed signing years ago. Same calm energy that could silence a storm. I half expected Emily to burst in and call me crazy again, but the house was empty. They'd left for their usual Saturday errands, which suddenly felt like divine scheduling. Ava set her coffee on the table and opened her laptop. "Let's start from the top," she said. "You remember the transfer papers we signed 5 years back?" "Barely. Lisa had just died. I just wanted to make sure Emily had security." "I remember," Ava said gently. "That's why I added a conditional clause standard for family gifts of property. Do you still have your copy?" I handed her the folder I'd pulled from the safe. She flipped through until she found the page she wanted. "Here," she said, turning the document toward me. Section 3, Paragraph 2. "In the event of failure to provide agreed-upon care, housing, or maintenance of familial respect, ownership reverts to the grantor." I stared at the paragraph. "You're telling me I still own this house?" "In legal terms," she said. "You never stopped." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Months of humiliation cracked open like a dam. Ava looked up. "Mark, what they did last night wasn't just emotional abuse. Locking you in that room could qualify as unlawful confinement. You're within your rights to reclaim the property and press charges if you want." I shook my head. "I don't want to fight. I just want my home back." "Then we'll do this the right way." She typed quickly, fingers a blur. "We'll need evidence, audio, video, witness statements, and documentation of their behavior since you got home. You said your doorbell camera caught the confrontation?" "Yes. And my neighbor Tom saw the police come. He's got footage on his own camera too." "Perfect," she said. "Between that and the police call record, we'll have what we need." Watching her work was like watching a surgeon, precise, focused, confident. Every keystroke cut away a little more of my helplessness. "Once we file the notice of gift revocation," she explained, "they'll have 72 hours to vacate. If they don't, we start eviction proceedings. You won't have to lift a finger." I nodded slowly. "After everything, it feels strange to think I can actually do something. That's what control feels like after gaslighting," she said. "You start to remember. You're not crazy, you were just manipulated." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't realized how much of myself I'd lost trying to keep peace in a house built on resentment. Ava noticed. "Mark, can I be blunt? Please. You keep apologizing for enforcing boundaries that should have existed years ago. You didn't cause this. You just tolerated it." I laughed softly. "That's one way to describe my parenting style, long-term tolerance." She smiled. "You're not alone. I've seen this before." Something in her tone made me curious. "You sound like you've lived it." Her expression shifted slightly, but she didn't answer, not yet. "Let's finish the paperwork first," she said. We spent the next hour drafting documents, the formal notice of gift revocation, and a 72-hour vacate order. Ava explained each line. The legal grounds, the evidence references, the delivery protocol. When she printed the final copy, the sound of the printer felt like closure. She slid the papers into an envelope stamped with her firm's letterhead. "Tomorrow," she said, "a process server will deliver this officially. They can't ignore it. What happens if they try?" Then we let the law do what family failed to. I leaned back, letting the reality sink in. Lisa would have liked you, I said. She already does, Ava said softly. And for the first time I noticed the small silver cross on her bracelet, the same one Lisa used to wear. She believed in people until they proved her wrong, I said. So do I, Ava replied. That's why I do this work. Before she left, she handed me her card again. Keep this close. Call me if they escalate. And Mark, if they try to guilt you, don't engage. Guilt is how narcissists negotiate. That line stayed with me long after she was gone. By evening, I'd gathered every piece of written evidence Ava asked for, screenshots of texts, audio clips, and receipts of every dollar I'd spent on them. I organized it into folders labeled legal, financial, and personal. Each label felt like a wall going up where a boundary used to be missing. As I was finishing, a text came in from Tom. Got your back, buddy. If they show up tonight, I'll keep the camera rolling. I replied with a simple, thanks. You might be the only neighbor I've ever needed. Then I set my phone on the nightstand beside a glass of water, this time poured without shaking. Tomorrow, the law would speak louder than apologies. And for the first time in years, I wasn't scared of the silence in this house. It felt like space, the kind you get back when you finally stop letting other people fill it with their noise. By Saturday morning, I wasn't angry anymore, just deliberate. Anger burns too fast. What I needed now was control. Ava's words from yesterday echoed in my head. You're not crazy. You were just manipulated. For the first time in years, I believed it. So I decided to test something one final time. Not to provoke them, but to prove, once and for all, who they really were when no one was watching. They came home from their errands a little after noon. The garage door rumbled open. Then the usual symphony of shopping bags, shoe drops, and casual laughter floated in from the hall. It sounded like any other weekend, but I had already moved the small audio recorder Ava had given me to the corner of the kitchen, right behind the fruit bowl. The doorbell camera was synced, too. Everything that mattered would end up in the cloud. I was sitting at the table when they walked in. Hey, I said easily. How was the mall? Emily's smile was polite, rehearsed. Fine, just some errands. Derek dropped a few bags on the counter. Got lunch if you're hungry. I appreciate it, I said. Before you sit down, could one of you grab me a glass of water? Was another. The request hung there, soft but heavy, the way thunder hangs before a storm. Emily turned slowly. You're kidding, right? Derek sighed. We've talked about this. You're supposed to move around more. I leaned back. I've been moving plenty. Just wanted to see if anything's changed. Changed? Emily echoed, defensive. You make everything sound like a test. It is a test, I said, evenly. Of kindness, of decency, of how much you value the person who gave you this house. Her face flushed. Don't start again with the guilt trip. Guilt isn't the goal, I said. Truth is, for a moment, the room went silent except for the refrigerator hum. Then Derek laughed, a short, cruel sound. You're really milking this heart surgery thing, huh? That one stung more than I wanted it to. But I kept my tone calm. You don't have to worry. I won't be milking anything much longer. Emily crossed her arms. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm finally keeping records. Her brows knitted. Records of what? Everything, I said simply. The words, the tone, the choices, she scoffed. You're being paranoid. Nobody's out to get you. I know, I said. That's what makes this so tragic. You're not even conscious of how cruel you've become. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She wasn't used to me standing my ground. I took a slow sip from the empty glass in front of me, symbolic, but satisfying. You know, Derek muttered. You really should be grateful we even let you stay here. I smiled faintly. Let me? He shrugged. You can't live alone. We keep an eye on you. That's worth something. You're right, I said. And I'll make sure you're paid for your trouble. Emily frowned. What does that mean? It means you'll be compensated with time. About 72 hours of it. She stared, confused. What are you talking about? I didn't answer. Not yet. I wanted their words on record, unedited. I swear, she said. You're acting like you're building a case or something. Maybe I am, I replied, finishing the line like a man signing his name. Her eyes narrowed. You wouldn't dare. 1. Derek stepped forward, voice low. You think some paperwork makes you powerful? We live here. It's our home. Funny, I said. That's exactly what I used to say. The tension thickened until even the air felt heavy. I could hear every shift in their breathing, every ounce of frustration turning to fear. Finally, I stood, moving slowly, intentionally. The stitches in my chest ached, but not as much as before. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my spare key ring, the one I'd found in the back of my nightstand. The small silver tag read "Home Sweet Home." I placed it on the counter between us. Do you know what this is? I asked. Emily frowned. Your spare keys? Mine, I said. Always were. I kept them for a reason. She laughed nervously. You're losing it. Maybe. Or maybe I just stopped giving everything away. Derek rolled his eyes. You can't take this house from us, Mark. You gave it as a gift. Conditional gift, I corrected. Ava explained it perfectly. Failure to provide care or respect constitutes breach. That's legalese for, you failed the test. Emily's face went pale. You talked to Ava? Yesterday, we had a long conversation. She remembers every clause you ignored. The silence that followed was thick and electric. Derek muttered something under his breath and turned toward the hallway. Emily just stood there, her hands trembling on the counter. You think this is justice? She said finally, voice quivering. Throwing your own daughter out? No, I said softly. It's balance. Justice is what comes after balance fails. For the first time in months, she didn't have a comeback. I picked up the glass, filled it at the sink, and took one slow sip. The water was cold, clean, and quiet. No bitterness this time. Just finality. Behind me, Emily whispered. You recorded this, didn't you? I turned, meeting her eyes. You did that all by yourself. Then I set the glass down beside the key ring. 2 objects, one meaning. Ownership reclaimed. The doorbell camera blinked once before the light went dark. Clip uploaded, cloud secured. Tomorrow, Ava would file the papers. And in 72 hours, this conversation would be more than memory, it would be evidence. That night, as I locked my bedroom door from the inside, I realized something strange. I didn't feel fear anymore. I felt space, room to breathe, to think, to rebuild the version of myself I'd traded for their comfort. Lisa would have been proud of me, I think, not for winning, but for finally stopping the quiet war I'd been fighting against my own silence. The glass on the nightstand caught a beam of moonlight, the water rippling slightly as the house settled. One more night in the home I built, one more night before I took it back for good. Sunday morning arrived quiet and heavy, like the calm before a long-awaited verdict. The air in the house felt different, charged, expectant. Not angry anymore, just waiting. Ava texted at 7:43 a.m. Notice of gift revocation officially filed. Process server en route. You'll receive confirmation by noon. 12 words that changed everything. I sat by the window, coffee cooling untouched in my hands, watching the driveway like it was a stage. Every sound, a car door, a passing jogger, made my pulse tick faster. I wasn't nervous about confrontation anymore. I was just done living in limbo. By mid-morning, Emily and Derek shuffled into the kitchen, bleary-eyed. No greetings, no eye contact. The tension had evolved into something quieter, resignation wrapped in denial. Emily poured herself coffee and finally asked, So, what happens now? I looked up. Now? You'll find out soon. Derek frowned. You think you can scare us with some letter from your lawyer? We'll fight it. You're welcome to try, I said. But I think you'll find the law a little less forgiving than I've been. He slammed his mug down. You're unbelievable, you know that? We took you in. We fed you. And now you're turning on us. You took me in, I repeated quietly. Derek, you were living here rent-free. Every meal, every bill, every piece of furniture, I paid for it. You didn't take me in. I let you stay. The room went still. Even Emily didn't defend him this time. She just stared at the floor. The doorbell rang. The sound made all three of us freeze. I didn't rush to answer. I wanted them to hear the echo of inevitability. When I opened the door, a man in a dark jacket stood there, holding an envelope stamped with Ava's firm seal. He confirmed my name, then asked, "Emily and Derek Cole?" "We're exempted." "That's us," Derek said, voice hardening. The man handed them each a copy. "You've been served. Notice of gift revocation and vacate order, pursuant to Washington State statute." Emily blinked rapidly. "Wait, what?" Derek snatched the document. "This is ridiculous. You can't just—" "It's official," the man said. "You have 72 hours to vacate. Further details are in the packet." Then he turned and walked away. No drama, no commentary, just a professional doing his job. The kind of person who didn't need to raise his voice to make reality undeniable. Emily stared at the papers, her lips moving silently as she read. Failure to provide agreed-upon care, breach of implied familial obligation. Her voice cracked on the words. Derek crumpled his copy into a fist. "We'll get a lawyer. We'll fight this. By all means," I said. "Call anyone you like. Just know that Ava's already filed for immediate possession, and there's a hearing date in 10 days. The evidence speaks for itself." "What evidence?" he snapped. I picked up my phone and opened the Doorbell app. The audio from yesterday's conversation filled the air. Emily refusing to help, Derek mocking me, every cruel word time-stamped and clear. Emily's hand flew to her mouth. "You recorded us?" "No," I said. "The house did." Silence. Then Derek muttered, "You set us up." I shook my head. "No, Derek. You revealed yourselves. I just stopped protecting you from the truth." Emily looked at me, eyes glassy with something I couldn't quite name, maybe guilt, maybe shame, maybe the first hint of accountability. "Dad, please, don't do this." "I already did," I said. She stepped closer, reaching for my hand. "We can change. We'll make this right." "You've said that before," I replied. "But apologies without change are just more manipulation." Derek's face twisted. "You think you're some kind of hero for this? You're ruining your own family." "No," I said, voice calm. "I'm saving what's left of it, my dignity." As. He looked ready to explode, but Emily caught his arm. "Stop. Please." She turned back to me. "What are we supposed to do? We don't have money for rent right now. We've got nowhere to go." I wanted to feel pity. I really did. But pity is what got me here in the first place, confusing compassion with compliance. "I'm sorry," I said. "But I spent years making sure you were comfortable while I was being erased. You'll figure it out. Maybe this time you'll appreciate what it takes to build a home instead of just live in one." Her lip trembled. "Mom would never forgive you for this." That one hit deeper than I expected. But I didn't flinch. Mom would have forgiven you for almost anything except cruelty. This house was her gift. You turned it into a weapon. Tears welled in her eyes, but she said nothing. Derek stormed out to the garage, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Emily just stood there, holding the papers like they were something radioactive. "I didn't know it could end like this," she whispered. "Neither did I said softly. "But now that it has, I can finally breathe." She looked at me one last time, eyes full of something between regret and disbelief, then turned away. The rest of the day passed in fragments, muffled arguments behind their closed door, the scrape of boxes being pulled from closets, the hollow thud of things being packed. By evening, the house sounded like it was exhaling. At dusk, I called Ava to confirm everything was in motion. She answered immediately. "They got served?" she asked. "Yep," I said. "And they're packing." "You handled it well, Mark. Better than most." I laughed quietly. "You sound like this isn't your first time dealing with something like this." She hesitated for a moment. "It's not. My mom went through something similar. Gave her sister everything after my dad died. Got treated like a tenant in her own house. That's why I became a lawyer, to make sure no one else gets trapped like that." There it was, the second twist I hadn't seen coming. "You never told me that," I said. "Didn't want to make it about me," she replied. But when I read your case, I knew I couldn't let it slide. You're not just a client, Mark. You're proof that people can reclaim their power, even late in life. For the first time, I smiled without effort. Thank you, Ava. Really. Get some rest, she said. By this time next week, the house will be yours again officially this time. After we hung up, I walked through the halls, past the photos, the furniture, the memories. It all looked the same, but everything had changed. At the kitchen table, I found the old silver keychain Emily had left there years ago, the one that said "Home Sweet Home." It was tarnished now, but I picked it up anyway, turning it in my hand. Maybe the phrase wasn't about a place after all. Maybe it was about the moment you stop living under someone else's definition of family. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the trees. Inside, I sat quietly, letting the sound wash over me. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for the next insult, the next manipulation, the next apology that never came. The countdown had begun. 72 hours, and every second felt like freedom dripping back into my life, one heartbeat at a time. Tuesday afternoon arrived, wrapped in the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, just finished. You know the sound a storm leaves behind? That clean, strange quiet when the air feels lighter, like the world has exhaled. That's what my house sounded like. Emily and Derek had been gone since early morning. They didn't say goodbye this time, just left the keys on the table with a note that said, "We're sorry. We'll figure things out." For once, I believed them. The moving truck had come at dawn. I watched from the porch as they loaded their boxes, all the furniture, the TV, even the air fryer I bought them last Christmas. There were no tears, no screaming, no last-minute negotiations, just two people quietly accepting that they'd pushed too far, and the man they thought they could control had finally stopped being afraid of losing them. When the truck disappeared down the street, I stood in the driveway for a long time, holding that same silver keychain, "Home Sweet Home." It looked smaller than I remembered. Maybe because I wasn't looking at it through guilt anymore. I went back inside and walked through each room. The air felt different, not because the house was emptier, but because it finally belonged to me again. The living room where they used to roll their eyes at me was peaceful now. The kitchen where I'd once begged for a glass of water felt like new territory, my territory. Even the locked bedroom door, now open, didn't carry bitterness anymore, just memory. On the coffee table sat the stack of documents Ava had sent over that morning, confirmation that the revocation and transfer had been processed. The house was officially, legally, irrevocably mine. Ava called around noon. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Strange," I admitted. "Quiet, but the good kind of quiet. That's what boundaries sound like," she said. "They don't roar, they hum." I laughed softly. "You're starting to sound like my late wife." "Smart woman, then." "She was," I said. "She always told me love without respect becomes debt. I just never realized how long I'd been paying." Ava paused. "You know, Mark, when people finally stand up to manipulation, they expect fireworks. But most of the time, it ends just like this: a door closing, a room exhaling. Peace doesn't need an audience." Her words sat with me long after we hung up. That night, I made myself dinner for the first time in months. Nothing fancy: grilled chicken, a baked potato, a glass of red wine I'd been saving since Lisa's birthday. I set the table for one, not out of loneliness, but ceremony. The first meal in a reclaimed home should mean something. Halfway through eating, I caught myself glancing toward the empty chairs where Emily used to sit scrolling her phone, where Derek would sprawl like he owned the place. The absence was loud, but it didn't hurt. It felt earned. I poured another glass of wine and walked to the living room, sitting in the same recliner I'd almost died in after surgery. The stitches were long gone now, but the scars, both kinds, still itched sometimes. That's how healing works. It doesn't always stop hurting. It just stops controlling you. The doorbell camera blinked once. Motion detected. Reflexively, I checked my phone. It was Tom from next door, holding a casserole dish. I stepped outside to meet him. "Peace offering," he said with a grin. "Figured you could use a break from microwave meals." "Thanks, Tom. You didn't have to." "I know," he said. "But neighbors look out for each other. And for the record, I saw how those cops handled it last week. You kept your cool better than I would've. I smiled. I had help. He nodded. That lawyer of yours, right? The one with the sharp suit and the scary calm voice? That's the one, I said, chuckling. Well, tell her she's welcome at the neighborhood barbecue anytime. You both earned your place here. We stood there for a while. Two men who'd learned in very different ways what respect really costs. When he left, I brought the casserole inside, set it on the counter, and realized how good it felt to receive something without feeling indebted. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, I opened the old photo album Lisa and I had kept in the hallway closet. There was one picture of Emily as a little girl, missing a front tooth, holding a dandelion up to the camera. Her smile was pure sunlight. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't hate her. I couldn't. I just finally understood that loving someone doesn't mean letting them wreck you. That forgiveness isn't weakness, it's permission to move forward without dragging the wreckage with you. So, I whispered into the quiet, I forgive you, kid. But I'm done saving you from the lesson. The air felt lighter after that. I placed the photo back in its sleeve and closed the album. Then I did something I hadn't done since before the surgery. I went outside, sat on the porch, and just watched the sky turn from gold to indigo. The house behind me creaked softly. Settling like it, too, was taking a deep breath. Tomorrow, Ava and I would finalize the paperwork, maybe even celebrate with coffee. She'd probably tell me I'd handled it like a pro, and I'd probably tell her I was just tired of being treated like a doormat. But tonight wasn't about winning or losing. It was about remembering that boundaries are love in practice, that self-respect can rebuild a home faster than any contractor, and that sometimes the sweetest revenge is peace. The last light of the day reflected off the silver keychain lying on the porch rail beside me. Home sweet home. For the first time in years, the words felt true. You'd think that once you win, once the papers are signed and the house is legally yours again, the story ends. But that's not how life works. Justice doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like quiet mornings when you finally wake up without dread. It's been 3 weeks since Emily and Derek left. The grass has started to grow wild in the spots where their cars used to park. I mow it on Saturdays, now slowly, deliberately. Not because I'm reclaiming the space, but because it feels good to do something steady again. Something mine. People ask if I've heard from them. The truth is, I have. Emily texted me once. A short message that just said, "We're okay. I'm sorry for everything." I didn't reply right away. I stared at that message for a long time, trying to figure out what kind of sorry it was. The kind that comes from guilt, or the kind that comes from growth. After 2 days, I wrote back, "Take care of yourself. I hope you find what kindness feels like again." That was it. No lecture, no anger, no promise of reunion. Just closure. The kind that doesn't need an audience. Ava stopped by last weekend. She brought coffee and that same quiet confidence that had carried me through the chaos. She set her briefcase down on the counter, even though we both knew there was no paperwork left to sign. "You look better," she said. "I feel better," I admitted. "Lighter. Like the air in this house is breathable again." She smiled. "It's not just the air. It's you. You've stopped living in reaction to them." I thought about that for a moment. "It's funny," I said. "All those years, I thought forgiveness meant giving people another chance. Turns out, it just means you stop bleeding for their mistakes." Ava nodded slowly. "That's the part nobody tells you. Setting boundaries isn't about walls. It's about clarity. You finally know where you end and where they begin." We sat in the kitchen for a while, drinking coffee and talking about small things, her dog, my garden, the upcoming town fair. And then she told me something that stuck. "You know, Mark," she said, "my mom used to say there are 2 kinds of forgiveness. The kind that invites someone back in, and the kind that simply closes the door without hate. You chose the second one." I teat. I looked around the kitchen, sunlight spilling across the counters, quiet hum of the fridge, the faint echo of peace settling into old corners. "It's the only one that lasts," I said. She grinned. "You should write that down. Maybe I will someday. But not yet. For now, I'm content to live it." After Ava left, I found myself wandering into Lisa's old study, a room I hadn't stepped into since before my surgery. The air smelled faintly of cedar and old paper. On the desk sat a framed photo of us from years ago, smiling in front of this very house when it was still full of promise. I sat in her chair and let the memories play out like an old movie reel. The laughter, the fights, the slow unraveling of time. I realized something then. This house wasn't haunted by what happened, it was finally healed by what I did. Not revenge, not punishment, just correction. I reached into the drawer and found one of Lisa's old journals. On the first page, in her neat handwriting, it said, "Family is a choice you keep making. Every day." I whispered to the empty room. Then today, I choose myself. That night, Tom came over for dinner. We grilled out back, nothing fancy, just burgers, corn on the cob, and a few beers. He asked how it felt to have the place to myself. "Strange," I said. "Peaceful. Sometimes I miss the noise, even if it was toxic. But quiet has its own kind of company." He nodded. "You earned that quiet." When he left, I stayed outside a little longer. The crickets were loud, the air warm and steady. Somewhere down the street, a kid laughed, sharp and bright. It sounded like life moving forward, not looking back. Before I went inside, I picked up the silver keychain from the porch railing and turned it over in my hand. The letters had faded now, but I didn't mind. Home sweet home wasn't a promise anymore. It was a reminder. Inside, I wrote something on a sticky note and placed it on the fridge. Never apologize for protecting your peace. Because that's what this story really was. Not a tale of revenge, but of recovery. Of learning that love without limits turns into servitude. And boundaries aren't barriers. They're lifelines. Emily and Derek might never understand the lesson, and that's okay. The story wasn't about them. It was about me finally remembering who I was before I became the caretaker of everyone else's comfort. As I turned off the lights that night, I realized something beautiful. Peace doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just whispers, "You're home." And for the first time in a long, long time, I truly was. It's strange how peace sneaks up on you. It doesn't announce itself with music or ceremony, it just slips in quietly one morning. And suddenly, everything that used to feel heavy doesn't anymore. It's been 2 months since the day I reclaimed the house. The lawn is trimmed, the roof's been repaired, and the walls don't echo with tension anymore. Sometimes, when I walk through the hallway, I swear I can still feel the faint vibration of old arguments, but even those memories have softened, like echoes dissolving into time. I don't hate Emily and Derek. I did, for a while, or at least, I thought I did. But what I really felt was grief. Grief for the idea of family I'd been clinging to long after it stopped existing. Grief for all the times I mistook endurance for love. There's something brutal about realizing that the people you raised can break your heart in ways no stranger ever could. But there's also something freeing about knowing that you don't have to let that define you. Ava once told me that healing isn't linear, it's cyclical. You revisit the same wounds until you finally stop reacting to them. She was right. I still think about that night they locked me in my room. The look on Emily's face when she said, "We're not your servants." It used to sting like betrayal. Now it just feels like a lesson, the line that marked where love ended and self-respect began. I've kept in touch with Ava. Not about legal stuff anymore. Just life. She's become a friend, the kind that listens without trying to fix you. Last week, she stopped by with her dog, a scruffy rescue named Milo who sheds on everything. We sat on the porch drinking iced tea, watching him chase the wind. "You ever think you'll let them back in?" she asked. "Maybe," I said. "But only if they come to the door as people who've learned something, not as victims of their own consequences." Ava smiled. "That's fair. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without resentment." I nodded. And I finally understand that. After she left, I found myself in the garden Lisa used to love. The roses she planted years ago had nearly died during the chaos, but I started tending to them again. It took weeks, but a few red blooms finally came back. The sight of them made me think of her. Not the grief version of her I carried for years, but the real woman. Stubborn, kind, and full of quiet strength. She would have been proud, I think. Not of the revenge, though. Yes, it was poetic, but of the peace that came after. The decision to stop living as a victim in my own story. Sometimes I catch myself talking to her out loud. It sounds crazy, I know, but it helps. You were right, Lisa. I told her the other night, love can't fix everything. But self-respect can fix a lot. Oh, I've learned something about toxic people too. They don't always look like villains. Sometimes they look like family. They laugh with you, share your holidays, and still chip away at your sanity piece by piece until you mistake erosion for normalcy. And by the time you realize what's happening, you've already built your life around the erosion. That's what I did. I gave and gave, thinking I was being a good father, when really, I was teaching them how to take. Every yes became permission. Every silence became approval. I thought I was keeping the peace, but I was just postponing the collapse. And the collapse, when it came, saved me. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone listening, anyone who's ever been made to feel small in their own home, it's this. You don't owe endless grace to people who confuse your kindness for weakness. Boundaries don't destroy love. They protect it. And if someone walks away because you set one, it's proof they were only comfortable when you had none. I still have moments of guilt. Sometimes I wonder where Emily is now. Whether she's found her footing, whether she tells the story differently, maybe in her version. I'm the stubborn old man who kicked his family out over a misunderstanding. And that's okay. Everyone needs a narrative that helps them sleep at night. Mine just happens to be the truth. One evening last week, as the sun set over the neighborhood, Tom came by with his wife, Carol. We had dinner out, back burgers, lemonade, and easy laughter. Halfway through, Tom raised his glass and said, "To second chances." I smiled. "To better boundaries," I added. We all laughed. But I meant it. When they left, I sat alone on the porch again, watching the sky fade from pink to indigo. The silver keychain sat beside me, faintly scratched now, the words "Home Sweet Home" barely visible. But I didn't need them to be. The meaning had already settled into me. Because home isn't just walls and furniture, it's the feeling of belonging to yourself again. It's the silence that doesn't demand apology. It's the peace that doesn't have to be earned. The house creaked as the wind shifted, and I realized it wasn't just me who'd healed. The house had, too. The walls no longer echoed with resentment. They just held the steady rhythm of normal life. The hum of the fridge, the tick of the old clock, the sound of someone finally at ease. I poured one last glass of wine, raised it to the empty room, and said quietly, "To Lisa, to lessons, to taking my life back." Hast. Then I sat there, sipping slowly, feeling the warmth spread through my chest, not from the drink, but from knowing I'd finally become the man I was supposed to be before I forgot how to say no. And maybe that's what all of this was about. Not revenge, not even justice. Just remembering that peace is worth fighting for. The story doesn't end here. It just settles like dust after a long storm until the house, and the man inside it, can finally rest. If there's one thing this whole experience taught me, it's that protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's necessary. For years, I confused silence with harmony and patience with love. I thought being a good father meant absorbing every insult, every manipulation, until there was nothing left of me but guilt and exhaustion. But the truth is, setting boundaries isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's how you remind yourself, and everyone around you, that you're a person, not a resource. The biggest lesson I learned is that no is a complete sentence. You don't have to justify it, sugarcoat it, or apologize for it. Saying no to people who take advantage of your kindness isn't betrayal, it's self-respect. And once you start living with that mindset, you realize that peace isn't about who stays in your life, but about who no longer has the power to disturb it. Now, when I sit in the quiet of my own home, the house that once echoed with entitlement and guilt, it doesn't feel lonely. It feels earned. Because reclaiming your life after years of being gaslit isn't just about winning back space. It's about rebuilding your sense of worth. So, what do you think? Was I wrong for drawing the line? Even if it meant losing my own daughter for a while? Have you ever had to deal with an entitled family member or someone who made you question your own sanity? Share your thoughts or your survival stories below. I think a lot of us could use the reminder that protecting your peace is never something to feel guilty about.